The locksmith was still packing his tools when my mother told my rain-soaked daughter we didn't live there anymore. I'm Allison Davis, 38, and this is how my own mother tried to steal my inheritance. A Victorian mansion worth $4 million and a trust fund she never knew existed. For 5 hours, my 11-year-old daughter Emma waited in the rain, while my mother and sister celebrated inside, thinking they'd finally gotten rid of the family disappointment. They changed the locks, forged documents, and told everyone I was too poor to deserve my grandfather's legacy. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. What they didn't know was that my grandfather, a man who built his fortune from nothing, had prepared for exactly this moment. It started 3 hours earlier, when Emma called me crying from our front door. Our family home sat on 2 acres in Beacon Hill, a 6-bedroom Victorian that my grandfather William Davis had bought in 1975 for what he called pocket change, though back then, 200,000 was anything but. The mahogany staircase curved like a spine through 3 stories, and every morning, light poured through the stained glass windows, painting rainbow patterns on Italian marble that had witnessed 50 years of our family's history. Grandfather made his fortune in commercial real estate, turning abandoned Boston warehouses into luxury lofts before gentrification was even a word. By the time he retired, his portfolio was worth $30 million. But if you asked him about his greatest investment, he'd point to the small study where he taught me chess when I was 7, where he helped Emma with her homework every evening for the past 11 years. I'd moved back home after my divorce, when Emma was just 6 months old. My ex-husband, a banker who'd promised partnership and delivered betrayal, had left me with nothing but debt and a baby. While my sister Victoria was climbing the ranks at Sterling and Associates, I was teaching 3rd grade at Franklin Elementary, making $45,000 a year and raising my daughter in the house where I'd grown up. Money amplifies who you really are, Allie, grandfather used to say, polishing his reading glasses in that careful way of his. Your sister thinks it makes her powerful. Your mother thinks it makes her important. But you know it's just a tool. In the living room, there hung a family portrait from last Christmas. Victoria stood in the center, her Harvard law degree practically glowing through her smile. Mother flanked her right side. Grandfather and I bookended them, with Emma on his lap. Looking at it now, you could see who truly belonged together. The comparison started before Victoria and I could even spell our names. Every family gathering became a scorecard that Mother meticulously kept. Victoria, Harvard Law Review editor, starting salary of $300,000. Me, state school, education degree, teaching other people's children, as Mother liked to phrase it. Last Thanksgiving, while I was helping Emma serve the cranberry sauce, Mother's voice cut through the dining room like a scalpel. "Why waste that Yale degree, Allison? You could have been anything." She said it while Victoria sat there in her Saint Laurent blazer, nodding along like we were discussing stock portfolios instead of my life choices. "Teaching shapes futures, Victoria," Grandfather interjected, his voice steady as granite. "Your lawsuits just shift money from one pocket to another." Victoria's laugh was crystalline, practiced. "Money that pays for this house's maintenance, Grandpa. Someone has to be practical." The silence that followed could have frozen champagne. Grandfather set down his fork deliberately, the small clink against china somehow louder than any shout. "This house has never been about money, Victoria. But I suppose you'd have to live here to understand that." Mother's face flushed burgundy, the same shade as the Chateau Margaux she'd insisted on serving. "Dad, Victoria's just being realistic. A teacher's salary, well, it's noble, but it doesn't maintain estates." Emma, wise beyond her 11 years, squeezed my hand under the table. She'd heard these conversations before, absorbed them like children do. Quietly, completely. That was the last family dinner Grandfather attended. 3 weeks later, he had his first stroke. The vultures started circling before the ambulance even arrived, though they dressed their greed in concern and called it planning for the future. Grandfather died on a Tuesday morning in March, 6 months ago. The hospice nurse said he went peacefully, but I knew better. He'd been fighting to stay until he could finalize what he called his insurance policy. The night before he passed, he squeezed my hand and whispered, "Everything's arranged with Robert Whitman. Remember that name, Allie." Mother took control immediately, wielding her executor status like a scepter. "Someone has to handle the practical matters," she announced at the funeral, while grandfather's body was still warm in the casket. Victoria stood beside her, already reviewing documents on her phone, her Cartier watch catching the light from the stained glass windows. The will reading was supposed to happen the following month. Mother kept pushing it back, first due to paperwork delays, then estate complications. Meanwhile, she changed the locks on grandfather's study, moved his personal files to a safety deposit box only she could access, and started what she called property assessment. "Just routine evaluation," Victoria assured me when I questioned it, her voice honey smooth. "You know how complex Grandpa's holdings were. We need to ensure everything's properly documented." What I didn't know then was that they'd already been to 3 estate lawyers, shopping for someone who'd tell them what they wanted to hear. The family attorney, Robert Whitman, the name grandfather had whispered, hadn't been contacted once. Emma noticed things changing before I did. "Why is Grandma measuring my room?" she asked one evening. "And why did Aunt Victoria take pictures of all Grandpa's paintings?" "Just organizing, sweetheart," I lied, though the weight of that lie sat like lead in my stomach. 2 weeks later, Mother casually mentioned she'd found additional documentation in grandfather's papers. Victoria's smile that day should have been my warning. The hostile takeover began with small violations. Mother changed the lock on grandfather's safe, claiming she'd lost the spare key. The utility bills, which had been on autopay from grandfather's account for decades, suddenly stopped. When I offered to handle them, Mother waved me off. "Victoria's managing the estate finances. She has experience with these matters." Then came the whispers. Mrs. Henderson from next door asked when we were planning to move. The mailman mentioned he'd heard the house was going on the market. Even Emma's teacher pulled me aside, concerned about the upcoming transition. "Has your family decided what you'll do?" she asked gently, as if I were a widow being evicted, not a daughter living in her childhood home. The source became clear when I overheard Victoria at the coffee shop on Newberry Street, holding court with her law firm colleagues. "The house needs someone who can maintain its status," she said, stirring her $8 latte. "Allison's sweet, but let's be honest, a teacher's salary in Boston? She'd have to sell within a year anyway." When I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. "I'm being practical, Allison. You have Emma to think about. A nice 2-bedroom in Somerville would be much more manageable." Mother started hosting estate planning meetings that I wasn't invited to. She'd installed a new Ring doorbell for security, though we'd never needed one in 40 years. The gardener was told to send his invoices to Victoria. The housekeeper was given new instructions about which rooms to clean. I should have seen it coming, should have recognized the systematic erasure of our presence. But I was grieving grandfather, comforting Emma, teaching my students. I was living while they were scheming. Friday started like any other day. I left for Franklin Elementary at 7:30, kissing Emma goodbye as she settled in for her teacher planning day off. She had her breakfast, her books, and promised to practice piano, grandfather's Steinway that had been silent since March. At 2:15, my phone buzzed during recess duty. Emma's name flashed on the screen, and something in my chest tightened before I even answered. "Mom." Her voice was small, scared. "My key doesn't work." "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I've been trying for an hour. The lock won't turn. I tried the back door too. Mom, I'm scared." The 20-minute drive home stretched like taffy. I called Mother 3 times, straight to voicemail. Victoria's assistant said she was in a meeting. Meanwhile, my 11-year-old daughter sat on the front steps of her own home as storm clouds gathered over Boston. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the rain had started, that kind of New England downpour that soaks through everything in seconds. Emma was huddled under the portico, her pink backpack dark with water, her hair plastered to her face. "How long have you been out here?" I asked, though her blue lips already answered. "Since 11, she whispered. "I went to the library first, but then it closed for lunch, and I thought maybe my key was just stuck, so I kept trying, and then it started raining, and 5 hours. My child had been locked out of her own home for 5 hours. I tried my key. It slid in halfway and stopped, like trying to force the wrong piece into a puzzle. The lock had been changed, professionally, recently. That's when the front door opened from the inside. Mother stood in the doorway wearing grandmother's pearl necklace, the one that was supposed to go to me, and a smile that could have frozen the rain mid-air. "Oh, Allison, we weren't expecting you so early." Emma shivered against me, her teeth chattering. 5 hours in the rain, and this was Mother's greeting. Behind her, I could see the locksmith's invoice on the hall table, still white and crisp. "My daughter has been outside for 5 hours, I said, each word measured, controlled. "Well, she should have called someone." Mother's fingers played with the pearls. "Though I suppose that's what happens when children are left unsupervised." "In her own home?" "About that." Mother stepped aside and Victoria emerged from grandfather's study, my study, where I'd been organizing his papers just yesterday. She wore her Armani suit like armor, her smile sharp as the letter opener in her hand. "We need to discuss living arrangements." The neighbors had started to gather, pretending to check their mail, walk their dogs. Mrs. Henderson stood on her porch with her phone out. The walkers paused their evening jog, an audience for my humiliation. "The family has decided," Mother announced, loud enough for the street to hear, "that you and Emma don't live here anymore." Emma made a sound, not quite a sob, more like the air leaving a punctured tire. I pulled her closer, feeling her shake against me. "This was never really your home anyway, was it?" Mother continued. "You were just visiting. Extended visiting, perhaps, but visiting nonetheless." I looked at my mother, this woman who'd given birth to me 38 years ago, who now stood in the doorway of my childhood home like a stranger. Then I said the only thing that mattered. Understood. Victoria descended the front steps, her heels clicking against wet brick like a countdown. The neighbors pressed closer, their umbrellas forming a semicircle of witnesses to our eviction. She held a manila folder wrapped in plastic. Even her cruelty was meticulous. "A teacher's salary can't maintain this property," she announced, projecting her voice like she was addressing a jury. "45,000 a year? The property taxes alone are 30,000. It's simple mathematics." Emma flinched at each word. I felt her trying to make herself smaller, disappearing into her soaked jacket. The rain kept falling, and still, neither my mother nor sister invited us inside. "We're doing this for the estate's protection," Victoria continued, opening the folder with theatrical precision. "I've prepared an eviction notice. 30 days, which is generous considering you have no lease, no rental agreement, no legal claim." Mrs. Henderson gasped. The walkers exchanged glances. This was better than their Netflix queue. Real-life drama starring the family that had lived here for 3 generations. "The house needs proper management," Mother added, still fingering those pearls. "Someone who understands its value, its standing in the community." "You mean someone rich?" Emma said suddenly, her voice cutting through the rain. Everyone turned to stare at my 11-year-old daughter, standing there soaked and shaking, yet somehow finding her voice. Victoria's laugh was like ice cracking. "It's nothing personal, Emma. It's just business sense. Something your mother should have developed instead of wasting her potential on finger painting and multiplication tables." I watched my daughter's face crumble, watched her learn that family could be cruel, that blood meant nothing when money was involved. The neighbors watched too, their phones probably recording, and still I said nothing. Sometimes silence says more than screaming ever could. "Of course this isn't arbitrary," Victoria said, producing another document from her folder. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, but the damage was done. Emma and I stood there like drowned cats, while my sister played lawyer on our front steps. We found grandfather's updated will, dated just 2 weeks before his passing. She held it up for the neighbors to see, as if this were a town tribunal. It clearly states his concerns about Allison's financial instability, the divorce, the debt, the limited earning potential. I studied the paper through the plastic sleeve. The signature at the bottom wavered and slanted wrong. Grandfather was left-handed but had taught himself to write right-handed after his first stroke. This signature was too smooth, too confident. It leaves the house and all assets to Mother and myself as the fiscally responsible parties, Victoria continued. We're simply executing his wishes. That's funny, I said quietly, my first word since understood. Victoria's smile flickered. What's funny about it? Grandfather was in Boston General that entire week, intensive care. I have the visitor logs. I met her eyes steadily. Emma and I were there every day after school. You visited once, Mother came twice. The neighbors leaned in. Mrs. Henderson had stopped pretending to check her mail. He had moments of clarity, Mother interjected quickly. The nurses confirmed it. Which nurses? I asked. Rosanna, who worked days, Marcus on nights, or maybe Jennifer, who specifically noted that he couldn't hold a pen those final 2 weeks. Victoria's jaw tightened. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just observing that grandfather's signature looks remarkably steady for a man who couldn't feed himself. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Then Victoria snapped the folder shut. You have 30 days. I didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I took Emma's hand and walked to my car, our footsteps squelching in the puddles they'd let form while my daughter waited in the rain. 30 days, Allison, Mother called after us, and only to collect your personal items. The furniture stays. I helped Emma into the passenger seat, wrapped her in the emergency blanket I kept in the trunk. Her lips were still blue, her whole body shaking. Through the rearview mirror, I watched Mother and Victoria return inside our home, my home, and close the door with a decisive click. The neighbors dispersed slowly, already pulling out their phones. By tomorrow, everyone at Franklin Elementary would know that Allison Davis had been evicted by her own mother. The gossip would spread like spilled wine across white linen. Mom? Emma's voice was tiny. Where are we going to live? Remember our old apartment in Brookline? Mrs. Chen still has it available. It's small, but it'll do for now. But all my things. Grandpa's piano. We'll figure it out, sweetheart. I drove us to the Marriott downtown, maxing out my credit card for 3 nights. Emma fell asleep in the shower, exhausted from cold and crying. I wrapped her in the hotel bathrobe and tucked her into the crisp white sheets, then stepped onto the balcony with my phone. The number I dialed was one I'd memorized but never used. It rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. Whitman Law Office, Robert speaking. Mr. Whitman, this is Allison Davis, William's granddaughter. There was a pause. Then, I've been expecting your call. How bad is it? They changed the locks today, showed a will dated 2 weeks before he died. I see. And you said the words? It's time. While Emma and I ate room service in our hotel room, Mother and Victoria celebrated in what they now considered their house. I knew because Victoria posted everything on Instagram: the champagne toast in grandfather's study, the interior designer's business card artfully placed next to her Hermes bag, the caption reading, New Beginnings, Family Legacy, Next Chapter. By Sunday, they'd hired Sotheby's to appraise the art collection. Mother posted on Facebook about honoring father's memory by preserving his investments. She'd already changed her profile to managing partner at Davis Family Estate. The comments poured in. Congratulations, heart emojis. You deserve this, Margaret. Victoria was more strategic. She leaked just enough information to the right people. Her firm's senior partners suddenly knew she'd inherited a Beacon Hill mansion. The Massachusetts Bar Association newsletter would run a piece about young lawyers managing family wealth. She'd already scheduled meetings with 3 private wealth managers. Finally, the house will have owners it deserves, she told her Instagram followers during a live tour. She stood in my daughter's room, planning where the home office would go. Emma's hand-painted mural, a garden grandfather helped her design, was already marked for removal. They divided grandfather's possessions like Romans casting lots. Mother claimed the jewelry, including pieces meant for Emma. Victoria took the cars, the Rolex collection, the first edition books. They inventoried everything with the efficiency of estate sale vultures, missing entirely the pencil marks on the kitchen doorframe tracking Emma's height, the chess set permanently mid-game in the library, the reading glasses grandfather left on every surface. But what made me smile, alone in that hotel room, was what they didn't notice. The missing files from grandfather's real safe, the one behind the Monet reproduction, not the decoy in his study. They were too busy celebrating to realize they'd won the wrong game. If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, you'll understand what comes next. Before we continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit the subscribe button. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who thought they were better than you? Share your experience in the comments. Now let me tell you about the letter that changed everything. Tuesday morning, 3 days after the eviction, the hotel concierge called our room. "Ms. Davis, there's a certified letter here requiring your signature." The envelope bore the Sterling and Associates letterhead, Victoria's firm, though she'd clearly used the senior partner's name to add weight. Inside, 3 pages of legal terminology boiled down to simple cruelty. Vacate within 27 days, or face formal eviction proceedings. Failure to comply will result in immediate legal action, the letter stated. All belongings not removed by the specified date will be considered abandoned property. They'd CC'd everyone who mattered, the family trustees at Boston Private Bank, grandfather's former business partners, even the principal at Franklin Elementary. Victoria wanted to ensure my humiliation was complete, documented, and witnessed. Emma read it over my shoulder, her face pale. "Can they really do this, Mom?" "They think they can." I opened my laptop and typed a simple reply, CCing everyone on Victoria's list. Received. Scheduling meeting with estate trustees as required by the Davis Family Trust provisions. Please have all original documentation ready for review. My phone rang within minutes. Mother, breathless with indignation. "What meeting? What trust provisions?" "The ones grandfather established. Surely Victoria reviewed all the documents." "Don't play games, Allison. You have nothing." "Then you have nothing to worry about." I could hear Victoria in the background frantically typing. They'd been so focused on the will, they'd never looked for additional instruments. Grandfather, who'd built his fortune on detailed contracts and contingency planning, wouldn't leave his legacy to a single document. "What are you planning?" Mother demanded. Exactly what grandfather planned. Did you really think he didn't prepare for this? A man who kept 3 sets of books and 2 separate law firms? The silence told me everything. I scheduled the trustee meeting for Thursday at 4 o'clock, the exact time and day grandfather always conducted important business. The email was precise, professional, copying Robert Whitman and all 5 trustees at Boston Private Bank. Per Article 12 of the William Davis Revocable Trust, I am requesting formal review of all estate documents, including recent submissions affecting property distribution. Victoria called within 3 minutes, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "What trust? There's no trust in the estate documents." "The ones you reviewed? Or the ones in grandfather's actual files?" "Allison, if this is some desperate attempt..." "Thursday, 4 o'clock. Bring every document you filed regarding the estate." Mother tried a different approach, showing up at the hotel that evening. The concierge called up, and I could see her on the security monitor, wearing her St. John's suit and practicing her concerned mother face. "Tell her I'm not available," I instructed. She waited 2 hours in the lobby, texting increasingly frantic messages. "We're family." Think of Emma's stability. Don't embarrass yourself further. Emma watched from the window as her grandmother finally left. "She looked scared, Mom." "Good. That night, Victoria had her paralegal research every trust filing in Suffolk County for the past 20 years. She found nothing under William Davis. Because grandfather, clever man that he was, had filed it under his original name, Wilhelm Davidovich, the Russian immigrant who'd arrived with nothing and built an empire. By Wednesday, they'd hired 2 additional lawyers. They'd also started moving their personal items into the house, so confident in their forged will that they'd already begun redecorating. Victoria's Tesla was parked in grandfather's spot. Mother had replaced the doormat. They still didn't know about the video cameras grandfather had installed, the ones that were still recording. Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock. Mother demanded an emergency family meeting at the house. My house, though she'd already changed the locks twice in 1 week. The text was curt. "We need to resolve this before tomorrow. Come alone." I didn't. I brought Emma, dressed in her school uniform, carrying the briefcase grandfather had given me when I graduated Yale. The same one Mother had mocked for collecting dust while you waste your education on children. Victoria answered the door, her power suit impeccable despite the stress fractures showing around her eyes. Behind her, 2 junior associates from her firm hovered like overdressed shadows, legal pads at the ready. "You brought the child?" she said, as if Emma were luggage. "You locked the child out in the rain. She has every right to be here." The dining room had been transformed into a war room. Documents covered grandfather's mahogany table, the one where he'd taught me chess, where Emma had done homework, where we'd shared 50 years of Christmas dinners. Mother sat at the head, grandfather's seat, wearing grandmother's emerald ring. "Let's make this simple," Mother began, not offering us seats. "Whatever game you're playing ends now. Sign this settlement agreement, take the $50,000 we're generously offering, and maintain some dignity." Emma stood straighter beside me, clutching my hand. I set the briefcase on the table with deliberate precision, the locks clicking open like punctuation. "Before I consider any settlement," I said, pulling out a single folder, "perhaps you should review what the trustees will see tomorrow." Victoria reached for it. I pulled it back. "First, explain why you told Mrs. Henderson 3 weeks ago that Emma and I would be moving out. That was before grandfather's will was supposedly found." The junior associates exchanged glances. Victoria's jaw tightened. "I don't recall." "Thursday, 4 o'clock. Bring everything." Victoria slammed a binder onto the table, making Emma jump. Inside were documents I'd never seen. My credit report, divorce decree, 3 years of tax returns, even my teacher evaluation reports. "Let's discuss reality," she said, her voice prosecutor sharp. 45,000 a year, 12,000 in credit card debt, a 2015 Honda Civic with 90,000 miles. This is who you think should inherit a $4 million estate?" She flipped through the pages like a dealer showing cards. "Your ex-husband's declaration stating you were financially irresponsible. Your bank statements showing 3 overdrafts last year. Even your own divorce lawyer noted your inability to maintain marital assets." Mother leaned forward, her emerald ring catching the light. "We're doing this for the family legacy, Allison. Numbers don't lie. You simply can't afford this life." "She can't even afford Emma's dental work," Victoria added, pulling out an insurance claim. $2,000 for braces, payment plan requested. How would you maintain a historic property when you can't manage basic expenses? The junior associates scribbled notes. One of them, barely older than my students' parents, looked uncomfortable. The other seemed to be enjoying the show. Emma's hand trembled in mine, but I squeezed it gently. Let them talk. Let them reveal exactly who they were. "This house needs someone who understands its value," Mother continued. "The property taxes alone." "32,000 annually," Victoria interrupted. "Plus maintenance, insurance, utilities. Your entire salary wouldn't cover the basics." She pushed another document forward, a comparative market analysis. "We could sell for $6 million, properly marketed, invest the proceeds, create lasting wealth instead of watching it drain away month by month while you play house in a mansion you never earned." "Is that all?" I asked quietly. They hadn't even opened my briefcase yet. Mother shifted tactics, her voice softening to maternal concern, a performance she'd perfected over 40 years of conditional love. Think about Emma's future, sweetheart. Private school tuition, college expenses, opportunities you can't provide on a teacher's salary. She reached across the table as if to touch my hand. I didn't move. We're offering $50,000. That's Emma's college fund. A down payment on a reasonable condo in Quincy, maybe Medford. Somewhere appropriate. Appropriate, I repeated. For your circumstances, Victoria clarified. A nice two-bedroom, good schools, no crushing property taxes. You could actually save money, take vacations, give Emma the experiences she deserves. The experiences she deserves, Emma said suddenly, included living with her great-grandfather. But you were too busy to visit him. Victoria's smile turned sharp. Children should be seen, not locked out in the rain, Emma finished. Mother intervened quickly. Grandfather would understand, Allison. He was practical above all else. He'd want you to be realistic about your limitations. My limitations. We're not trying to be cruel, Mother continued, though the emerald ring she twisted said otherwise. But watching you struggle to maintain appearances, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, it's undignified. Grandfather built this fortune through smart decisions. Honor that legacy by making one yourself. Victoria slid the settlement agreement across the table. Sign tonight, and we'll even cover your hotel costs. Consider it a kindness. The briefcase sat unopened between us, patient as a sealed verdict. The junior associates had stopped taking notes, sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere. You know, I said finally, Grandfather once told me that kindness from cruel people always comes with a price. He was right about so many things. Spare us the homilies, Victoria snapped. Will you sign or not? Victoria pulled out her Mont Blanc pen, the one she'd received for making partner, and set it beside the settlement agreement with theatrical precision. Let's be clear about your options, she said, full lawyer mode now. Sign this tonight, take the $50,000 and walk away with dignity. Or we go to court, where every detail of your financial inadequacy becomes public record. Every teacher at Franklin Elementary will know you couldn't pay your bills. Every parent will whisper about the Davis girl who lost everything. You know you can't afford lawyers, Mother added. Even if you could, Victoria has her entire firm behind her, senior partners who golf with judges, resources you can't imagine. One of the junior associates shifted uncomfortably. The other one kept glancing at my still-closed briefcase. Sign it, Allison, Victoria pressed. Don't embarrass yourself further. Don't put Emma through a court battle you'll lose. Take the money. Start fresh. Accept that some people are meant for certain lives, and others aren't. The grandfather clock in the hall, the one grandfather wound every Sunday, chimed 8 o'clock. In 12 hours, we'd sit before the trustees. They thought they held all the cards. Emma looked up at me, and in her eyes I saw grandfather's strength, his patience, his faith that doing right mattered more than doing easy. I reached for the briefcase, running my fingers over its worn leather. Before I sign anything, there's something you should see. Victoria's hand moved to cover the settlement agreement. No more delays. Sign now or what? You'll forge my signature too? The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. The junior associates exchanged glances. Mother's face went pale beneath her foundation. I opened the briefcase. The first document I pulled out made Victoria's hand freeze on her Mont Blanc pen. It was grandfather's actual will. Not the forgery they'd been waving around, but the original with its raised notary seal and video authentication code. Interesting how grandfather signed this 6 months ago, I said calmly, 2 weeks after your version was supposedly created. And look, witnessed by Robert Whitman and Dr. Marcus Hayes, his neurologist. Victoria snatched it, her eyes scanning rapidly. The color drained from her face as she read the key passage aloud. To my granddaughter Allison Sarah Davis, I leave the family residence at 47 Beacon Hill to be held in perpetuity for her and her daughter Emma. That's impossible, Mother whispered. We found, you found what Victoria created, I said. But grandfather knew you would. That's why he video recorded the signing. Would you like to see it? He was quite lucid. He even mentioned you both by name. The junior associates had stopped pretending to take notes. One of them pulled out his phone, probably texting the senior partners. There's a codicil, I continued, pulling out the next document, about the trust fund. Victoria's hands shook as she read. This can't be legal. We would have known. Would you? You never asked Robert Whitman. Never checked under grandfather's original name. Never wondered why he kept saying everything was arranged. You were too busy measuring rooms and calling designers. Mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. This is fraud. Like you manufactured a will dated when grandfather was in intensive care? I pulled out the hospital records. Every nurse's note, every doctor's signature, every visitor log showing Emma and I were there daily while you two were planning your takeover. The trust document was 40 pages of grandfather's meticulous planning. I turned to the tagged section and let Victoria read it herself. Her face went from pale to ashen. The Wilhelm Davidovich Irrevocable Trust, she read, voice cracking. Established January 15, 2014. Initial funding, $2.5 million. That's impossible, Mother said. That money would have shown in the estate. Not if it was already in trust, Victoria whispered, her legal mind catching up. Irrevocable means it couldn't be changed, couldn't be touched, could only be triggered under specific circumstances. I flipped to Article 7. Such as any attempt to fraudulently claim estate assets or deny rightful inheritance to named beneficiaries. The room felt airless. Victoria kept reading, her lips moving soundlessly. Mother gripped the table edge, her emerald ring clicking against the wood. Beneficiaries, Victoria continued. Allison Sarah Davis and Emma Rose Davis. In the event of attempted fraud against said beneficiaries, all parties involved in such fraud forfeit any and all claims to the estate of William Davis, formerly Wilhelm Davidovich. You knew, Mother accused. You knew all along. I knew, grandfather. I knew he'd never leave us unprotected. I pulled out the next document. This is particularly interesting. Section 3, paragraph 7. Any attempt to change locks, deny access, or evict named beneficiaries from the family residence automatically triggers full disbursement of trust funds and permanent forfeiture of inheritance rights for perpetrating parties. One of the junior associates whistled low. The other was frantically texting. You changed the locks, I said quietly. You have 27 days to vacate. Your own eviction notice established the timeline. Victoria's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. The senior partners had gotten word. The final item from the briefcase wasn't a legal document. It was a letter, handwritten on grandfather's personal stationery, the kind he used for important correspondence. His handwriting, shaky but determined, filled 2 pages. My dearest Allison, I read aloud, my voice steady despite the tears threatening. If you're reading this, then Margaret and Victoria have done exactly what I expected. I'm sorry you had to experience their cruelty, but not surprised. Money doesn't change people, it reveals them. Mother sank into her chair. Victoria stood frozen, her phone vibrating continuously on the table. I know they will try to take everything. They've been planning it for years, thinking I was too old to notice Victoria copying my signature, Margaret asking about account numbers. They never understood that I built my fortune by seeing what others tried to hide. Emma pressed closer to me as I continued reading. You were the only one who loved me, not my money. Who brought Emma to visit every day, not just when you needed something? Who taught children instead of chasing dollars? Who saw wealth in relationships rather than bank accounts? The teacher who shaped my great-granddaughter's heart is worth more than any lawyer who only knows how to take. The junior associates had stopped all pretense of professional distance. One was recording on his phone. Let them think they've won. Then show them this. The house is yours, as it always should have been. The trust will ensure you and Emma never struggle. But more than money, I leave you the truth. Kindness is not weakness, and those who mistake it for such always pay the price. Robert Whitman has everything else you need. Trust him as I have. I folded the letter carefully. He signed this in front of 3 witnesses. Would you like to see the video of that too? I opened my laptop and connected to the dining room's smart TV, the one Victoria had installed just yesterday. Robert Whitman's face filled the screen via video call, his expression grave but satisfied. "Good evening, Ms. Sterling, Mrs. Davis," he said formally. "I've been expecting this call for 6 months." "This is highly irregular," Victoria started. "What's irregular is submitting forged documents to probate court," Whitman interrupted. "I have here the video recording of William Davis, taken 6 months ago in the presence of myself, Dr. Marcus Hayes, and nurse practitioner Jennifer Chen." The screen split, showing grandfather in his study, looking frail but alert. His voice, though weak, was clear. "I, William Davis, formerly Wilhelm Davidovich, being of sound mind, do hereby confirm my will dated March 15th and the irrevocable trust established for my granddaughter Allison and great-granddaughter Emma." On screen, grandfather looked directly at the camera. "I know Margaret and Victoria will attempt to steal their inheritance. They've already been asking questions, making plans. Victoria has practiced my signature. Margaret has been documenting Allison's finances to build a case against her." Mother gasped. Victoria's phone clattered to the floor. "Therefore," grandfather continued, "I'm establishing this video record. Any will dated during my final hospitalization is fraudulent. Any attempt to evict Allison triggers the trust's fraud clause, and Mr. Whitman has been instructed to pursue all legal remedies, including criminal charges for forgery and elder abuse." Whitman returned to the screen. "I also have security footage from this house, subpoenaed this afternoon. It shows you, Mrs. Davis, instructing the locksmith while Emma Davis sat locked out. It shows you, Ms. Sterling, explicitly discussing forging documents. Would you like me to play it for the trustees tomorrow?" The look on my mother's face at that moment. If you've been enjoying this story of justice, please take a second to like this video. It really helps others find these stories. And if you want to hear what happened at the official trustee meeting, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Trust me, the public confrontation was even more satisfying than this private one. Now let me tell you how 5 bank trustees and a room full of witnesses watched my family's empire crumble. Thursday, 4 o'clock. The conference room at Boston Private Bank's Wealth Management Division looked like a courtroom designed by someone with money to burn. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor, crystal water pitchers caught the afternoon light, and 5 trustees sat behind a mahogany table that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Mother arrived in full armor, St. John's suit, grandmother's pearls, and a face that suggested nothing had happened last night. Victoria brought reinforcements, Sterling and Associates senior partner James Morrison, and 2 more associates. They carried bankers' boxes of documents, as if quantity could overcome truth. Emma and I arrived 5 minutes early, accompanied by Robert Whitman. I wore the same dress I'd worn to teach that morning, navy blue, simple, the one Mother always said made me look provincial. Emma wore her school uniform. We looked exactly like what we were, a teacher and her daughter fighting for their home. The trustees, 3 men and 2 women, all grandfather's age, watched us with careful eyes. The court reporter set up in the corner. 2 witnesses from the bank's trust department flanked the door. "This is highly irregular," Morrison began before anyone sat down. "My client questions the validity of this meeting." "Your client," interrupted the lead trustee, Harold Brennan, "submitted documents to this institution that we now have reason to believe are fraudulent. Sit down, Mr. Morrison." Mother's composure cracked slightly. Victoria's phone, which she'd been checking obsessively, was confiscated by bank security. "No recordings in this room except official ones," they said. Brennan opened a folder thick with tabs. "We'll begin with the original will submitted by Ms. Sterling. Ms. Sterling, did you personally witness William Davis sign this document?" The court reporter's fingers flew across her keys. Every word was being preserved. Victoria stood, her courtroom confidence flickering like a bad connection. My client located this will among Mr. Davis's papers. That's not what I asked, Brennan cut her off. Did you witness the signing? No, but the signatures have been analyzed by our forensic document examiner. Brennan pulled out a report. Would you like to know the findings? Morrison jumped in. We questioned the chain of custody. Then you'll appreciate this, said Trustee Patricia Wong, producing an iPad. Security footage from Mr. Davis's home office dated the day this will was allegedly signed. Mr. Davis was at Boston General, intubated, yet somehow this document appeared in his files 2 weeks later. She swiped the screen. Here's Ms. Sterling entering the office with a briefcase. Here's her leaving without it. Here's Mrs. Davis discovering the will in that same briefcase the next day. Convenient. Dr. Hayes entered the room, nodding to the trustees. I was Mr. Davis's neurologist for his final year. On the date that will was supposedly signed, he was under heavy sedation, unable to hold a pen, much less sign legal documents. I have the medical records here. Victoria tried another angle. Even if there were irregularities, my mother as executor. Your mother's executor status is hereby suspended pending investigation, Brennan announced. Mr. Whitman, please present your documentation. Mother stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt. My daughter and I have managed this estate. Into your own pockets, Whitman said calmly, placing a stack of receipts on the table. Interior design consultations for a house you didn't own, appraisals for art you were planning to sell, moving services scheduled for next week, all paid from estate funds. The trustees exchanged glances. Morrison's face had gone gray. The court reporter kept typing, capturing every damning word. Now, Brennan said, let's discuss the security footage from 6 days ago. The wall-mounted screen flickered to life. There was our front door, timestamp clear, Monday, 11:47 a.m. Emma appeared, school backpack on her shoulders, trying her key. The confusion on her face as it wouldn't turn. Her calling through the door, knocking, trying the back entrance. 11:47, Wong noted. The child attempts entry. Fast forward, 12:15 p.m. Emma sitting on the steps. 1 o'clock p.m. Still there. 2 o'clock p.m. The rain starting. 2:30 p.m. Emma huddled under the small portico, soaked through. Would you like to explain, Brennan asked Mother, why you left an 11-year-old child locked out in a storm? I didn't know. The footage jumped to an interior camera. Mother and Victoria in the kitchen, watching through the window as Emma sat in the rain. Victoria actually laughed. The audio was clear. Maybe this will teach Allison she doesn't belong here. The trustees' expressions hardened. One of them, a grandmother herself, looked disgusted. There's more, Whitman said. The screen showed grandfather's office, dated 3 weeks prior. Victoria at his desk with documents spread out. Just forge it, she told Mother. She's too naive to check with Whitman. We'll say we found it in his papers. Mother's response was crystal clear. Make sure the date works. He was in the hospital that whole week. So I'll date it before. She never visited him that Tuesday. Actually, I spoke for the first time. I did. Emma had a fever, so we went early, before school. The nurse's log shows us there at 6 a.m. Morrison was packing his briefcase. The associates had already left. Victoria stood alone, her carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. The footage continued, each clip more damning than the last. Grandfather had installed cameras everywhere, a paranoid precaution that now proved prophetic. 3 months before his death, Mother in his study, photographing financial documents while grandfather slept upstairs. Victoria on her laptop, searching How to Contest a Will, Massachusetts, and Elderly Mental Capacity Legal Standards. 2 months before, Victoria practicing grandfather's signature on legal pads, comparing it to canceled checks. Mother on the phone with a different law firm. If my father were deemed incompetent, who would control the estate? 1 month before, the two of them in the dining room, dividing assets on a spreadsheet. Allison gets nothing, Victoria said. We'll give her some cash to go away quietly. She's always been the weak one. The trustees watched in silence. The court reporter's fingers never stopped moving. Then came the worst part. Grandfather, 2 weeks before his death, struggling to speak but clear. Margaret was here, asking about my will, wanting power of attorney. I told her everything's with Robert, but she didn't listen. Watch them, Robert. They'll come for Allison the moment I'm gone. Brennan paused the video. Ms. Sterling, Mrs. Davis, do you have any explanation for this? Victoria's phone, confiscated but visible on the security desk, lit up with notification after notification. Her firm was already distancing themselves. This is taken out of context, Mother started. The context, Wong interrupted, is elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and forgery. The bank is obligated to report this to the authorities. We could also discuss the missing items, Whitman added, pulling out another list. Several pieces of jewelry, 2 Rolex watches, and 3 first-edition books have disappeared from the house since Mr. Davis's death. Security footage shows both of you removing them. Morrison stood, his face professionally blank. Sterling and Associates withdraws representation, effective immediately. He looked at Victoria with something between pity and disgust. The partners will expect your resignation by Monday. Victoria's carefully maintained composure finally shattered. James, you can't. The firm cannot be associated with this. He left without another word, his associates scrambling after him. Mother tried one last desperate play. This is all a misunderstanding. We were trying to protect the estate. From its rightful heir? Brennan asked. By forging documents? By changing locks? By leaving a child in the rain? The bank's legal counsel entered the room. I'm obligated to inform you that we're filing a suspicious activity report with the Attorney General's office. Document forgery involving estates of this size is a felony. Victoria sank into her chair. 7 years of law school and practice, destroyed in 7 minutes of footage. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, the bank has frozen all accounts associated with the estate pending investigation. Any items removed from the property must be returned within 72 hours, or will add theft to the charges. Mother's hand went to the pearl necklace, grandmother's pearls, the ones she was wearing. These are mine. According to Mr. Davis's will, Whitman corrected, those were specifically left to Emma Davis when she turns 18. You're wearing stolen property, Mrs. Davis. The other trustees had been silent, but now Patricia Wong spoke. I've known William for 40 years. He built his fortune honestly, worked for every penny. To see his own daughter and granddaughter try to steal from his chosen heir. She shook her head. He told me once that money would reveal who you really were. He was right. Emma squeezed my hand. We'd stayed silent through it all, letting the evidence speak. I stood for the first time since the meeting began, pulling out the final document from grandfather's briefcase. There's one more thing. More. The room turned to me. Mother and Victoria looked like they'd been struck, unable to process any more revelations. Grandfather gave me power of attorney 6 months ago, I said, placing the notarized document on the table. Specifically for situations involving family fraud. It includes the right to pursue both civil and criminal charges. Victoria's legal mind, even in shock, understood the implications. Criminal charges would mean disbarment, Brennan finished. Possible imprisonment, certainly the end of any legal career. I looked at my mother, this woman who'd given birth to me, but never truly seen me. At my sister, who'd measured my worth in dollars and found me wanting. They'd spent their lives believing that kindness was weakness, that being a teacher made me less than. You have 30 days, I said quietly. The same 30 days you gave me. You can remove your personal belongings from the house, under supervision. The locks will be changed tomorrow at noon. Allison, please, Mother started. I could press charges today. Right now. Mr. Whitman has everything prepared. I paused, letting them feel what Emma had felt standing in the rain. But I have a daughter who still needs a grandmother, even a flawed one. So here's my offer. Full admission of guilt to the trustees, return everything you've taken, vacate the property, and stay away unless invited. That's blackmail, Victoria whispered. No, Whitman corrected. That's mercy, more than you showed an 11-year-old child. The trustees waited. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keys. You have 30 seconds to decide, I said. Then I file charges. The vote was unanimous and swift. Brennan didn't even need to poll the other trustees formally. Their nods were enough. The trustees hereby recognize Allison Sarah Davis as sole beneficiary of the William Davis estate, including the Beacon Hill property, all associated assets, and the Wilhelm Davidovich Irrevocable Trust. His gavel, yes, they actually had a gavel, struck once. The court reporter read back the key points for confirmation. $4 million house, transferred to Allison Davis, $2.5 million trust fund, released immediately to Allison and Emma Davis. All personal property, investments, and remaining assets, Allison Davis. Furthermore, Wong added, Margaret Davis and Victoria Davis Sterling are permanently barred from any claim on the estate due to attempted fraud. This decision is final and non-appealable. The bank's lawyer stepped forward with transfer documents. Ms. Davis, we'll need your signature on these. The house deed will be re-recorded this afternoon. The trust funds will be available Monday morning. As I signed my name, my real name, not the forgery Victoria had practiced, I thought about grandfather's words. Money amplifies who you really are. Mother and Victoria sat frozen, watching their inheritance evaporate with each stroke of my pen. The pearls around Mother's neck seemed to tighten. Victoria's phone, finally returned to her, buzzed with what I assumed were termination details from her firm. The locksmith will arrive at noon tomorrow, Whitman informed them. You have until then to collect your personal items, clothing and toiletries only. Everything else remains pending the investigation. My car, Victoria started, was purchased with estate funds 2 weeks after Mr. Davis's death, Whitman interrupted. It stays. Emma stood beside me as I signed the last document, her hand steady in mine. We'd won. More importantly, we'd won the right way. Victoria's phone hadn't stopped buzzing since Morrison left. Now, as we gathered our documents, she finally answered it. Even from across the room, we could hear the senior partner's voice. Your access to the building has been revoked. Security will escort you to collect your personal items Monday at 9 a.m. Your cases are being reassigned. The Massachusetts Bar Association will be notified of our internal investigation. She hung up without responding. 7 years at the firm, gone. Her parking space, her office with a view, her path to senior partner, evaporated. The bar investigation alone will take 18 months, Whitman noted quietly. Even if criminal charges aren't filed, the ethical violations are clear. No firm in Boston will touch her. Mother's phone rang next. The charity board president, a woman who'd attended grandfather's funeral just 6 months ago. Margaret, given the circumstances, we're requesting your immediate resignation from the board. The gala next month. Perhaps it's best if you don't attend. Then another call. The country club membership committee, the museum volunteer coordinator, the social infrastructure Mother had spent 40 years building collapsed in 40 minutes. Boston society had rules, and attempting to defraud an estate, especially when caught on camera, broke all of them. My reputation, Mother whispered, is exactly what you earned, Patricia Wong said. William Davis was respected in this city. People knew him as honest, generous, kind. You're his daughter. What will they think of you now? The court reporter finished packing her equipment. The trustees filed out, but Brennan paused at the door. Ms. Davis, he said to me, your grandfather would be proud. He always said you were the only one who understood what really mattered. Victoria laughed bitterly. A teacher. He left everything to a teacher. No, I corrected. He left everything to family. I pulled out my phone and made a call. Strongbox Locksmith? Yes, I need service at 47 Beacon Hill. Tomorrow, noon. Complete lock replacement. Yes, the same address you serviced on Monday. Mother's face went white. It was the same company, the same locksmith she'd hired to lock us out. You recognize the irony, don't you? I said, putting the phone away. The same man who locked Emma out will lock you out. The difference is, I'm giving you time to pack. From my bag, I produced 2 more documents. Eviction notices, properly formatted, legally pristine. 30 days to remove all personal belongings from the guest house and pool house where you've been storing things. The main house? You have until noon tomorrow. Where will I go? Mother asked, the reality finally hitting. Where was Emma supposed to go when you locked her out? Victoria tried one last grasp at control. This is vindictive. This is identical to what you did to us. Same timeline, same terms, same locksmith. I handed them the notices. Though I'm not making you wait in the rain for 5 hours first. The security guard knocked. Ms. Davis, your car is here. A Tesla. Victoria's Tesla. The one she'd bought with estate money. That's mine. Was yours. It's being returned to the estate. I tossed the keys to Whitman. You can take an Uber. I did on Monday, remember? With my wet, shivering daughter. Emma tugged my hand. Mom, tell them about the apartment. I looked at my daughter, wise and kind despite everything. Emma thinks you should know. Mrs. Chen still has that 2-bedroom available in Quincy, the one you said would be appropriate for us. First month's rent is $3,000. You have $50,000 from your last birthday gift from grandfather. Should be enough to start over. But I'm not heartless like you were, I continued, watching their faces cycle through shame, anger, and desperation. So here's what I'm willing to do. They looked up with the kind of hope that drowning people have for life preservers. Mother, the guest house is yours if you want it. Month-to-month lease, market rate, $3,500. It has its own entrance, so Emma won't have to see you unless she chooses to. Because despite everything, she still needs a grandmother. Mother's hand trembled as she reached for the tissue box that wasn't there. The conference room didn't cater to emotional breakdowns. There are conditions. You attend family therapy. You apologize to Emma, genuinely, not for show. You never again mention my salary, my choices, or my worth. And you never, ever have a key to the main house. What about me? Victoria asked, though her voice had lost all its courtroom confidence. You tried to destroy my career by notifying my employer. You researched my finances to humiliate me. You called me weak. I met her eyes steadily. So no, Victoria, there's no guest house for you. Seattle has law firms. Start over where nobody knows what you did. That's not fair. Fair, Emma spoke up, her 11-year-old voice cutting through the room. Was it fair when you laughed while I sat in the rain? When you called my mom a disappointment? When you tried to steal my home? The room went silent. Even the security guard looked away. Mercy isn't weakness, I said finally. But it's not unlimited either. You have 24 hours to decide about the guest house, Mother. After that, the offer's withdrawn. Whitman nodded approvingly. Your grandfather always said you'd know how to balance justice with grace. By Friday morning, the story had spread through Boston's interconnected circles like spilled wine at a white tablecloth dinner. Teacher inherits millions after family betrayal, ran in the Globe's Metro section. The reporter had somehow gotten wind of the security footage, though not the actual video. At Franklin Elementary, the other teachers surrounded me with support I hadn't expected. We always knew you were too good for them, said Janet, who taught 4th grade. Your mother came to the winter concert last year, complained the whole time about the public school atmosphere. The parents were even more supportive. Dr. Chen, whose twins I'd taught 2 years ago, pulled me aside. Your grandfather would be proud. My father always said William Davis was the only honest developer in Boston, Mrs. Henderson called from next door. I saw the locksmith leaving. Same company as Monday, wasn't it? Poetic justice, dear. Also, I may have given an interview to Channel 5. Hope you don't mind. Emma returned to school on Monday to find her classmates treating her like a hero. "Your mom's like a superhero," her friend Katie said. "She beat the villains with just papers." Even the principal weighed in. "I got a call from Victoria's firm," she told me privately. "They wanted to verify your employment history for their investigation. I told them about your Teacher of the Year award. Twice." The best part was the mail. Dozens of letters from other teachers, single mothers, people who'd been underestimated by their families. "Thank you for showing that kindness wins," one wrote. "My sister always said teaching was giving up. You prove that choosing service over salary doesn't make us less than." But the letter that mattered most came from Seattle, 2 weeks later. Victoria's resignation from the bar, voluntary but permanent. 6 months later, the house felt like home again. Emma's laughter echoed through hallways that had been silent since grandfather's death. Her art covered the refrigerator. Her friends ran through the gardens. The Steinway piano, which had gathered dust during those terrible weeks, now filled the evenings with her practicing. I kept teaching at Franklin Elementary. The trust fund meant I didn't need to, but those third graders needed someone who saw their potential, not their parents' bank accounts. The only change was that I could buy all the supplies myself now, could fund field trips, could ensure no child in my class went without. "Why do you still teach?" a parent asked at conferences. "You could do anything now." "I am doing something," I replied. "I'm shaping futures. Grandfather's money just means I can do it better." With the trust funds, I established the William Davis Teacher Foundation, $50,000 a year to Boston public school teachers for supplies, training, or emergencies. The first recipient was Janet, who'd been buying pencils with her grocery money for 20 years. Emma thrived. The therapy helped her process the betrayal, but more importantly, she learned that standing up for yourself didn't mean becoming cruel. She started a kindness club at school, raised money for the food bank, and tutored younger students in math. "Grandpa would love this," she said one evening, playing his favorite Chopin nocturne on the Steinway. The house itself seemed happier. I replaced Mother's cold modern art with family photos, real ones, showing grandfather teaching Emma chess, helping with homework, reading stories. The formal dining room became a homework station. The parlor no one used became a library where neighborhood kids could come read. Money hadn't changed who I was. It had just amplified it, exactly as grandfather predicted. Mother took the guest house. After 3 months of therapy and 2 genuine apologies, Emma agreed to supervised visits. Sunday dinners, by invitation only, with clear boundaries and consequences. "I was wrong," Mother admitted one evening, watching Emma practice piano through the window. "I thought success meant money. Your father knew better, but I was too proud to listen." She wore simple clothes now, having sold most of her designer pieces to pay legal fees. The charity boards were gone, the country club membership revoked, the society friends distant. But something in her seemed lighter, like admitting failure had freed her from maintaining the facade. Victoria moved to Seattle, then Portland, then Denver, running from her reputation. Last I heard, she was doing document review for a small firm, the kind of work first-year associates usually handle. Her Harvard Law degree and Sterling and Associates partnership might as well have never existed. She sent one letter, 6 months after everything. No apology, just, "You won, hope you're happy." I wrote back, "I didn't win, I just refused to lose." The last Sunday before Thanksgiving, Mother asked if she could join us for the holiday. "You'll have to ask Emma," I said. Emma thought about it for a long moment, then nodded. "But you sit at the side of the table. Mom sits at the head. That's Grandpa's seat, and she earned it." Mother agreed. It was progress. That night, after everyone had left and Emma was asleep, I sat in Grandfather's study with his chess set. The game we'd never finished was still there, frozen mid-move. "You knew how this would play out," I said to his empty chair. "Every move, every counter-move. You prepared me for all of it." I moved my queen. Checkmate in 3. You're welcome to visit Emma, I'd told them. But you'll never have a key again. Some boundaries once set should never be moved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to let anyone dim your light. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'd love to hear about a time you stood up to someone who underestimated you. Share in the comments below. And remember, document everything, know your worth, and never let anyone, especially family, convince you that choosing kindness over ambition makes you less deserving. What would you have done in my situation?